The first scream came from the palace tower just before dawn. Guards rushed through the marble halls, swords drawn, expecting assassins or dark creatures. But when they burst into the prince's chamber, they froze. Prince Alaric stood in the center of the room. Or at least, what remained of him. His royal bed had been torn apart as if by invisible claws. The windows were shattered. Cold wind howled through the chamber, carrying the faint smell of burnt magic. And the prince's face. Deep, jagged scars ran across it like cracks in stone. They weren't simple wounds. The skin around them shimmered faintly with dark energy, as if something ancient still lived inside the marks. One of the guards dropped his sword. My prince." Alaric slowly lifted his head. His voice came out low and rough. Did it work?" No one answered. Because no one knew what he meant. Hours later, the entire kingdom knew something terrible had happened. The royal court gathered in the great hall as the kingdom's most powerful healers surrounded the prince. Candles burned in circles of glowing runes while ancient spellbooks floated open in the air. The high mage raised his staff. "Hold him steady." Golden light burst from the staff and wrapped around the prince's body. The air hummed with powerful healing magic, the kind that could restore shattered bones and cure deadly curses. The scars glowed. For a moment, hope flickered across the room. Then the light shattered like glass. The high mage staggered backward, gasping. It rejected the spell. A royal healer rushed forward next, placing glowing hands over the prince's face. Gentle silver magic flowed from her palms. Normally, even the worst wounds would begin closing within seconds. But the scars didn't move. Instead, they pulsed once, almost like they were alive. The healer yanked her hands away in fear. "What kind of magic is this?" Whispers spread through the court. They tried everything. Elven healing songs. Dwarven rune medicine. Sacred phoenix ashes. Even forbidden restoration magic from ancient tomes. Nothing worked. Every spell faded the same way, swallowed by the strange power inside the scars. By sunset, the palace had fallen into heavy silence. Prince Alaric sat alone in the healing chamber while the last mage quietly packed his scrolls. The old man looked at the prince with sorrow. "I have studied magic for 60 years, he said slowly. "But I have never seen wounds like these." Alaric's fingers tightened around the edge of the chair. "Just tell me the truth." The mage hesitated. Then he spoke the words no one in the kingdom wanted to hear. "They cannot be healed." The room felt colder after that. Outside, rumors spread like wildfire through the capital. Some said the prince had been cursed by a demon. Others whispered that he had angered an ancient spirit during the battle 3 nights earlier. A few claimed the scars were punishment from the gods themselves. But the truth was far stranger. 3 nights ago, a shadow had appeared above the kingdom's walls. Not a creature. Not an army. A living storm of black magic. It devoured torches, cracked stone towers, and swallowed arrows fired by terrified soldiers. And in the middle of the chaos, Prince Alaric had ridden straight toward it. Witnesses said he raised his sword and shouted something no one could hear before the storm exploded in a flash of blinding light. The kingdom survived. But when the smoke cleared, the prince collapsed. And when he woke up the next morning, the scars were there. Alaric stared into the mirror across the healing chamber. He barely recognized the person looking back. The jagged marks stretched from his cheek to his jaw and across one eye like dark lightning frozen in his skin. Even worse, faint threads of black magic glowed deep within them. He looked less like a prince, and more like a monster from old war stories. A knock came at the chamber door. "Your Highness." It was Captain Rowan of the Royal Guard. Alaric didn't turn away from the mirror. "Yes. The court wishes to see you tomorrow morning." Of course they did. Kings and nobles hated uncertainty. They needed to know whether their future ruler was still presentable. Alaric finally reached for the silver mask resting on the table beside him. It had been prepared only hours earlier. A prince should not appear broken in front of his people. He fastened the mask over his face. The cool metal hid the scars perfectly. But it didn't hide the burning feeling underneath. "Very well," Alaric said quietly. "Tell them I will attend." Captain Rowan hesitated before leaving. "My prince." "Yes?" "You saved the kingdom 3 nights ago." Alaric looked back at the mirror. Saved the kingdom. Yet the person staring back at him didn't look like a hero. He looked cursed. The next morning, the great royal court filled with nobles, knights, and advisors. Every whisper stopped when Prince Alaric entered the hall. The silver mask reflected the golden sunlight pouring through the stained glass windows. His long royal cloak trailed behind him as he walked toward the throne beside his father. No one could see his scars. But they all knew they were there. The king studied his son carefully. "Are the healers finished?" Alaric nodded once. "They are." "And?" For a moment, the entire court held its breath. "They cannot heal it." Whispers exploded across the hall. The king raised a hand for silence, though concern flashed across his face. "Then we will summon more healers," he said firmly. "From every kingdom if necessary." But Alaric already knew the truth. Magic had failed. For the first time in his life, the prince felt powerless. Days passed. Then weeks. More healers arrived. More spells failed. Eventually the palace stopped announcing the attempts. And slowly, Prince Alaric stopped leaving his chamber. The mask stayed on. The mirrors were covered. Servants spoke in hushed voices when they passed his doors. To the outside world, the brave prince who saved the kingdom had simply disappeared. Until the day a traveler arrived at the castle gates. Not a noble. Not a mage. Just a young human girl wearing dusty boots and a worn traveling cloak. The guards crossed their spears to block her path. No visitors. The girl looked up at the towering castle walls. "I didn't come to visit." The guards frowned. "Then why are you here?" Her answer was simple. "I came to see the prince." One guard laughed. "Everyone wants to see the prince." But the girl didn't laugh. She met his eyes calmly and said something strange. "I heard no magic could heal his scars." The guard's smile faded. "That's none of your concern." The girl adjusted the small bag on her shoulder. "Maybe not." Then she said the words that would soon change the entire kingdom. "But I think I know why the magic failed." The guards exchanged uneasy looks. And how would a human know something the greatest mags in the world don't? The girl's gaze drifted toward the castle tower where the prince had been hiding for weeks. Her answer was quiet. "Because they're trying to heal the wrong thing." And far above them, behind locked doors and covered mirrors, the scarred prince had no idea that the only person who could truly change his fate had just arrived at the gates. The guards at the castle gate had heard many strange requests before. Travelers asked for shelter. Merchants asked for royal permission to trade. Messengers came with letters sealed in wax. But none of them had ever heard someone say what the young human girl said that afternoon. "I want to see the prince." The two guards exchanged a look before one of them laughed. "Everyone wants to see the prince," he said. "But that doesn't mean they can." The girl stood calmly in front of the towering iron gates. Her cloak was dusty from travel, and her boots were worn from long roads. She didn't look like someone important. But her eyes were steady. "I didn't come to visit the castle," she said quietly. "I came to see him." The older guard frowned. "You picked the wrong time. The prince isn't meeting anyone." "I know." "Then why are you here?" The girl looked up toward the tallest tower of the castle. "I heard no magic could heal his scars." The guard stiffened slightly. Rumors had spread quickly through the kingdom. People whispered about the prince's wounds in taverns and marketplaces. Some said he had been cursed by dark magic. Others claimed he had angered an ancient spirit during the battle 3 weeks earlier. But inside the castle, no one liked speaking about it. "That's none of your concern," the younger guard muttered. The girl shifted the small bag on her shoulder. "Maybe not," she admitted. "But I think I know why the magic failed." That made both guards pause. "You?" the older one said skeptically. "The greatest mags in the world couldn't fix it." "I'm not a mage," the girl replied. "Then how would you know anything about it?" Before she could answer, a firm voice came from behind them. "That's exactly what I'd like to know." The guards turned instantly and bowed. "Captain Rowan." The captain of the royal guard walked down the stone steps toward them. His armor shone in the sunlight, but his face carried the exhaustion of someone who had been dealing with a problem no sword could solve. Rowan looked at the girl carefully. "You want to see the prince?" "Yes." "You're not a healer?" "No." "Or a mage?" "No." Rowan crossed his arms. "Then explain why I shouldn't send you away." The girl met his gaze without hesitation. "Because everyone who tried to help him came with spells." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "That's usually how healing works." "Maybe," she said. "But maybe that's the problem." The guard shifted uncomfortably. Rowan studied her face, searching for arrogance or mockery. Instead he saw something unusual, certainty. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena." "Well, Lena," Rowan said slowly, "do you understand what you're asking?" The prince hasn't seen visitors in weeks. I know. And the last healer left 2 days ago after failing. I heard. Rowan sighed. He remembered the night the prince returned from battle. The strange scars glowing faintly with dark magic. The way every spell shattered against them. Nothing had worked. Rowan looked back at the girl. And you think you can help him? I think someone should tell him the truth. The captain hesitated. Then he made a decision. Fine, he said at last. Follow me. The guard stared in surprise as Rowan led the girl through the gates and into the castle courtyard. Servants paused to watch them pass. A human traveler walking through the royal halls was rare enough. But walking toward the prince's private chambers? That was something else entirely. They climbed several flights of stairs before stopping outside a heavy wooden door guarded by 2 silent knights. Rowan knocked. After a moment, a voice answered from inside. What is it? My prince, Rowan said, someone wishes to speak with you. I'm not seeing visitors. She's not a healer. Silence followed. Then why is she here? Rowan glanced at the girl beside him. She says magic failed because everyone was trying to heal the wrong thing. Another long pause. Finally the prince spoke again. Let her in. Rowan opened the door. The room inside was dim. Most of the windows were covered, and dark cloths hung over the mirrors along the walls. Prince Alaric stood near the far side of the chamber. Tall. Silent. And wearing a silver mask that hid his face completely. His voice was calm when he spoke. So, he said, looking at the girl, you believe the greatest mags in the world made a mistake. Lena stepped forward a few paces. I think they were solving the wrong problem. The prince let out a quiet laugh. That would be impressive, considering you've never even seen the scars. That's true, she admitted. Then you're wasting your time. She shook her head slightly. Why are you hiding? Rowan nearly choked. No one asked the prince that question. But Alaric didn't get angry. Instead he studied the girl for a long moment. You really want to see them? He asked quietly. Yes. You won't like what you see. That's okay. Slowly, the prince reached up and removed the silver mask. The scars were harsh and jagged, running across his face like cracks of dark lightning. Faint threads of strange magic pulsed within them. Most people who saw them for the first time recoiled. Lena didn't. She stepped closer, studying them carefully. The prince waited for fear or pity. Instead, the girl smiled gently. And whispered the words no one else had ever said. They're beautiful. For a long moment, no one moved. The words hung in the quiet chamber like something fragile that might break if anyone spoke too loudly. They're beautiful. Prince Alaric stared at the girl as if he had misheard her. Behind her, Captain Rowan looked equally stunned. In the 3 weeks since the battle, dozens of people had seen the prince's scars. Mags, healers, advisors, even the king himself. Every reaction had been the same. Shock. Pity. Fear. But never that. Beautiful. The prince's voice was quiet when he finally spoke. You're mocking me. I'm not, Lena said calmly. You expect me to believe that? His hand tightened around the silver mask he still held. Everyone else in this kingdom can barely look at them. Lena tilted her head slightly as she studied the marks across his face. The scars were sharp and uneven, cutting across his cheek and over one eye like dark lightning frozen in skin. Thin threads of strange magic shimmered faintly beneath the surface. But Lena didn't see a monster. She saw something else. You charged into that storm 3 weeks ago, she said. Alaric frowned. You weren't there. No, she admitted. But everyone's talking about it. Captain Rowan crossed his arms near the door. The whole kingdom saw the sky light up when it happened. Lena looked back at the prince. They said the storm of dark magic was destroying the outer walls. Alaric didn't answer. They said soldiers couldn't get close to it, she continued. Arrows burned before they reached it. Magic spells collapsed. Still silence. And then the prince rode straight into it. Rowan shifted slightly. That part is true. Lena stepped a little closer to Alaric. So tell me something, she said quietly. What? Why? The prince blinked. Why what? Why did you ride into it? For a moment, the prince looked confused by the question. Because it was destroying the city. That's not what I asked. Alaric frowned deeper. What do you mean? Lena's voice remained calm. There were thousands of soldiers on those walls. Hundreds of mags. Generals with years of battle experience. She met his eyes. But you rode into it. Rowan watched carefully now. He had never actually heard the prince explain that moment. Alaric looked away toward one of the covered mirrors. I didn't have time to think. That's not true. The prince's head snapped back toward her. You don't know anything about that battle. No, Lena agreed. But I know people. The room grew quiet again. You saw something the others didn't, she said softly. And what would that be? That if the storm reached the inner city, thousands of people would die. Alaric didn't respond. But his silence was answer enough. So you rode in, Lena said. Anyone would have. Rowan shook his head slightly. No, the captain muttered. Most wouldn't. Lena nodded. You weren't trying to destroy the storm. Alaric's brow furrowed. What? You were trying to stop it. That's the same thing. No, Lena said gently. It isn't. She pointed toward the faint glow within the scars. That storm was alive somehow. Ancient magic. Dangerous magic. Rowan frowned. The mag said the same thing. And when it exploded, Lena continued, all that power had to go somewhere. Alaric's expression slowly changed. You think? It hit the closest thing strong enough to hold it. She looked directly at him. You. Rowan's eyes widened slightly. The prince stared down at his hands. You're saying I absorbed it? I'm saying you shielded the kingdom, Lena replied. The room fell into deep silence. For weeks, every mage had described the scars as damage. A curse. Something broken. But Lena was describing something different. Something almost impossible. They aren't wounds, she said softly. They're marks. Alaric looked up again. Marks of what? Lena smiled faintly. Of the moment you saved everyone. The prince let out a short, bitter laugh. If that's true, why do they hurt every time someone tries to heal them? Because healing magic thinks they're injuries. Rowan slowly straightened. And they're not. No. Lena stepped closer again, studying the glowing threads beneath the skin. They're more like scars left by power. Alaric touched one of the marks along his cheek. They burn. That's because you keep treating them like something shameful. The prince blinked. What? Lena gestured around the room. Covered mirrors. Locked doors. A mask you never take off. Her voice softened. You're hiding from them. They make people afraid. Do they? She asked gently. Yes. Or do people become afraid because you hide them? Rowan shifted uncomfortably. He had wondered the same thing. Lena crossed her arms. In human villages, scars are different. Alaric frowned. Different how? We don't hide them. She shrugged. They're proof that someone survived something dangerous. The prince stared at her. You're saying, these are something to be proud of? I'm saying they're part of your story. He looked back toward the covered mirrors. All I see is a monster. Lena shook her head. You see the moment you almost died. She stepped closer again. But everyone else sees the moment you saved them. The prince was silent for a long time. Finally he asked quietly. Then why won't magic heal them? Lena smiled slightly. Because they were never meant to disappear. At that exact moment, the faint black glow within the scars flickered. Rowan leaned forward slightly. Did you see that? Lena nodded. The magic inside them is reacting. To what? Alaric asked. She looked directly at him. To the first person who stopped calling them a curse. The prince slowly raised his hand to his face again. The burning sensation that had haunted him for weeks was fading. Just slightly. And for the first time since the battle. He wondered if the scars had never been his enemy at all. Prince Alaric stood silently in the dim chamber, his fingers lightly touching the scar that crossed his cheek. For 3 weeks, the scars had burned constantly. Every healer who approached had only made the pain worse. Every spell had felt like fire against his skin. But now, the burning had faded. Not completely. But enough for him to notice. Captain Rowan noticed it too. You're not reacting, the captain said slowly. Alaric looked up. What do you mean? Every time someone came close to examine them, the scars flared with magic. I saw it happen over and over. Rowan nodded toward Lena. But they didn't react when she stepped closer. The prince looked back at the human girl. She was standing only a few feet away now, studying the scars with calm curiosity rather than fear. Does it still hurt? She asked gently. Alaric paused before answering. Less. Rowan frowned in confusion. That doesn't make any sense. Lena smiled slightly. It does if the scars were never meant to be healed. The prince lowered his hand. You keep saying that, he said. But everyone else believes they're cursed. Everyone else didn't see what happened that night, Lena replied. Rowan crossed his arms. Neither did you. That's true, she admitted. But I've heard enough stories to understand something important. Alaric tilted his head slightly. And what's that? Lena gestured toward the faint glow inside the scars. That magic storm didn't disappear. Rowan's brow furrowed. The mag said it exploded. Yes, Lena said. But energy like that doesn't just vanish. She looked directly at the prince. It had to go somewhere. Alaric slowly understood what she meant. You still believe it entered me. I believe you stopped it from destroying the city. The prince walked toward one of the covered mirrors along the wall. For weeks he had avoided looking at his reflection. Now he hesitated before pulling the cloth away. The mirror revealed the same face he had seen before. Sharp, jagged scars stretching across his cheek and over one eye. Dark lines like lightning frozen in skin. But something had changed. The black glow inside the scars was softer now. Almost steady. Not violent. Not wild. Rowan stepped closer behind him. I've never seen them look like that. Like what? Alaric asked quietly. Controlled. Lena nodded. That's because the magic isn't fighting anymore. The prince turned toward her. What do you mean? For weeks everyone has been trying to remove the scars, she said. They thought they were damage. Yes. But if they're actually marks left by power, trying to erase them would only make the magic resist. Rowan exhaled slowly. So the spells were making it worse. Exactly. The prince stared at his reflection again. For the first time since the battle, he didn't immediately look away. They still look terrifying. Only because people don't understand them yet, Lena said. Alaric gave a quiet, humorless laugh. People fear what they don't understand. Then maybe they should see the truth. Rowan looked between them. What truth? Lena's answer came without hesitation. That their prince didn't return cursed. She folded her arms. He returned carrying the power that almost destroyed them. Silence filled the chamber. The idea was almost impossible to believe. Yet something about it felt right. Alaric looked down at the silver mask still resting in his hand. For 3 weeks he had worn it every moment outside this room. Without it, the court would see the scars. They would whisper. Fear would spread even more. You're suggesting I show them, he said. Yes. Rowan frowned. My prince, that could be dangerous. Alaric glanced at him. You think they'll see a monster? The captain hesitated. I think the court might panic before they understand. Lena stepped forward. Or they might finally realize what their prince did for them. Alaric walked slowly across the room. His footsteps echoed softly in the quiet chamber. 3 weeks ago, he said, I rode into something no one could stop. He stopped beside the window and pulled the curtain aside. Sunlight poured into the room. Far below, the city stretched across the hills, full of life. Markets. Homes. Children playing in the streets. All of it still standing. Because the storm had never reached them. I didn't do it for glory, he said quietly. I know, Lena replied. He looked down at the silver mask again. For weeks I believed these scars meant something was wrong with me. Rowan said nothing. Maybe, Alaric continued slowly, they mean something else. Lena smiled. They mean you survived something no one else could. The prince stood in silence for another long moment. Then he made a decision. He walked back to the center of the room and set the silver mask on the table. Rowan blinked. My prince. Summon the court. The captain stared at him in surprise. Now. Yes. Rowan looked uncertain. They haven't seen you without the mask since the battle. Alaric nodded. That's exactly the problem. Lena watched quietly. If the kingdom believes their prince has become cursed, Alaric said, then it's time they see the truth. He straightened his shoulders. The scars across his face caught the sunlight from the window, glowing faintly with quiet power. Today, the prince said firmly, I stop hiding. Rowan slowly smiled. It will shock them. Alaric gave a small, confident grin. Good. Far below the castle. Messengers began running through the palace halls. A royal announcement echoed across the fortress. The prince would appear before the court. Without the mask. And within hours, the entire kingdom would finally see the scars their prince had been hiding. The great royal hall had not been this crowded in weeks. Nobles filled the long rows of carved benches. Advisors whispered behind velvet sleeves. Knights stood in polished armor along the walls. Everyone had come for the same reason. The prince was finally appearing before the court again. Rumors had spread quickly after Captain Rowan delivered the announcement. Some believed the healers had finally cured him. Others feared the opposite, that the prince had grown worse. A few whispered the word no one wanted to say too loudly. Cursed. The king sat upon the high throne, his brow heavy with concern. Beside him stood Rowan, watching the great doors at the far end of the hall. The room buzzed with uneasy voices. Then the doors opened. Silence fell instantly. Prince Alaric stepped into the hall. His royal cloak flowed behind him as he walked forward with steady confidence. Sunlight poured through the tall stained-glass windows, casting colors across the marble floor. But the first thing everyone noticed was the same. The prince was not wearing the silver mask. Gasps rippled through the hall. The scars were clearly visible now. Jagged lines crossed his cheek and curved over one eye like dark lightning frozen beneath his skin. Faint threads of strange magic shimmered inside them, glowing softly under the light. Several nobles flinched. One woman covered her mouth in shock. But the prince didn't stop walking. He moved calmly through the hall until he reached the center of the chamber. Then he turned to face them. For weeks, the court had imagined the scars as something monstrous. Something cursed. Something unnatural. But standing there now, the prince did not look like a creature of darkness. He looked like a warrior who had survived something impossible. The king slowly rose from his throne. "My son." Alaric bowed his head respectfully. "Father." The king studied his face carefully. The scars were real. But so was the calm strength in the prince's posture. "They told me the healers failed," the king said. "They did." Murmurs spread again. "Then why remove the mask?" one noble asked nervously. Alaric turned toward the court. "Because I was wrong to hide." The room quieted. "For 3 weeks," the prince continued, "I believed these scars meant something was broken inside me." He raised a hand and lightly touched the mark across his cheek. "I believed magic had failed to heal them because they were a curse." The court listened carefully. "But someone helped me realize the truth." Alaric turned slightly toward the back of the hall. Lena stood quietly near the doors, watching. She hadn't intended to be noticed. But the prince gestured toward her. "A human traveler came to the castle yesterday." The nobles looked surprised. "A human?" someone whispered. "She told me something none of the mags understood." Alaric faced the court again. "These scars are not wounds." The murmurs returned. "They are marks." The king frowned slightly. "Marks of what?" The prince's voice grew steady. "Of the moment the kingdom survived." The room fell silent. 3 weeks ago," Alaric continued, "a storm of ancient magic attacked our walls." Many in the court nodded. They remembered the night well. Arrows failed. Spells failed. Even our strongest defenses could not stop it. He paused. "So I rode into it." Rowan stood proudly at the side of the throne. "And when the storm exploded," the prince said quietly, "its power had nowhere to go." The faint glow inside the scars pulsed softly. "So it remained with me." A noble gasped. "You're saying you absorbed it?" "I'm saying I stopped it." The hall grew still again. Slowly, people began looking at the scars differently. Not as something frightening. But as something earned. "They cannot be healed," the prince said. "Because they were never meant to disappear." He lowered his hand. "They are proof of what happened that night." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Captain Rowan stepped forward. "I was there," the captain said loudly. "I saw the storm above the walls." He looked around the hall. "And I saw the prince ride straight into it while the rest of us could do nothing." The whispers changed. Fear slowly turned into something else. Respect. The king walked down from the throne and stopped in front of his son. He studied the scars carefully. Then, without hesitation, he placed a proud hand on Alaric's shoulder. "You saved this kingdom." The court finally understood. The scars weren't marks of darkness. They were marks of sacrifice. The king turned to face the nobles. "My son has nothing to hide." One by one, the nobles lowered their heads in respect. Across the hall, Lena watched quietly. She smiled when she saw the way people looked at the prince now. Not with fear. But with admiration. Alaric noticed her and walked toward the back of the hall. Rowan raised an eyebrow. You're leaving the royal court. Just for a moment. The prince stopped in front of Lena. You were right, he said softly. She shrugged. I just told you what I saw. You saw something no one else did. He glanced toward the court, where nobles were still speaking in awe. You changed how they see me. Lena shook her head gently. No. She pointed at the glowing scars. You did that when you rode into the storm. Alaric smiled slightly. Still? I'm glad you came. Lena adjusted her small travel bag. I should probably continue my journey. The prince frowned. You're leaving already? That was always the plan. He thought for a moment. Then at least allow me to thank you properly. How? Alaric looked back at the kingdom visible through the tall windows. Stay. Lena blinked. Stay? Yes. He smiled. After all, the greatest mags in the world couldn't heal the prince. The faint glow in the scars shimmered again. But a human girl managed to do it with a single sentence. Lena laughed softly. And what would I do in a castle? Alaric grinned. Well, every kingdom could use someone brave enough to tell the truth. And from that day forward, the story spread far beyond the kingdom's borders. Not about a cursed prince, but about a prince whose scars became a symbol of courage. And about the human girl who reminded an entire kingdom that sometimes, the most powerful magic in the world, is simply seeing someone for who they truly are.